Tommy Boyds Show will teach you nothing. Nothing.
Always read the label.
Nothing but iniquity and wickedness.
If you really bug me, then I'll say goodbye.
I spent the weekend with my wits about me, looking about me, trying to answer a question which somebody asked me during the week, which I said, well, I'll get back to you on that because it is an interesting question. And the question was this: what do you think, Tom, was the most crippling legacy of the Thatcher years? And as I walked around, mostly around the south of England, watching and feeling, I found myself thinking it was the erosion of our once proud mining industry. And then I thought, no, hang on. And I found myself down on the coast in Docklands territory, and I thought to myself, it was the damage done to our once peerless shipbuilding industry. And I thought, no, it wasn't, was it? No. And then, walking past an enormous complex, an industrial complex of factories, I found myself thinking, it was the reduction in power of our trade unions. And then I thought, no, it wasn't. Because the last thing I did at the weekend was take the family and we went in and we had a quick fast food meal. And that was when I realised, do you know the answer to the question, what was the most crippling legacy of the Thatcher years? I'll tell you. It was the complete erosion of table manners. Table manners. They've gone to the wall. What's happened to us as a nation? In 1979, we led the world. We were the envy of the world. Rich people would send their children to Britain not to be educated in reading and writing and arithmetic, but in how to behave when eating. What is civility? What is civilization if it is not knowing how to disport yourself at table? When do we let ourselves down the most? Is it when we open our mouths and people are able to hear whether or not we are properly educated? People are able to hear whether or not we're able to form proper vowel sounds? No! It's when we're eating and we open our mouths to say something and we are swallowing and chewing food at the same time. But we all do it. All of us do it. You watch television, you watch EastEnders, you watch any programme on television, and people are sitting down at the table, observing absolutely none of the essential table manners whatsoever. And that is an absolute disgrace. If you're eating at the moment, look at you. Get those elbows off the table. Free call 0500 1053 89. And don't say a word if you've got food in your mouth. And if you are eating, do it silently and chew your food properly, which means at least 28 separate mastications per mouthful. Free call 0500 1053 89. Is this old-fashioned of me? I don't think so. Manners, table manners, maketh the man, the woman, and the child. Look at all the food that we put on the table now that you're not only allowed to pick up with your fingers, but you have to pick up with your fingers. What separates us from Neanderthal man? One thing and one thing only. Cutlery! Cutlery! Use it properly. How do you eat peas? You do, don't you? You generally eat your supper with your fork in your right hand, spooning upwards. It's the height of that is the height of bad manners. If you're eating peas, you have your fork in your left hand and you compress the peas against the back of the fork using the knife. Free call 0500 1053 89. The number of people who eat their meals at the table, and by table in many houses that means the kitchen table because that's the only table. What happened to the dining table? Properly laid with placemats and with cutlery. But they sit there at the kitchen table with the television on, or, worst of all, with somebody reading a newspaper whilst they are eating. Now, We wonder why we've lost our communication skills. It's because we have no table manners. We wonder why there are so many people with digestive disorders, and you know and I know it's so obvious, but your doctor will never say so because he'd rather prescribe you some drugs. It's because we've lost our table manners. There aren't many things in which the British lead the world, and we've lost this one, and we can get it back. And once again, we can be the envy of the world for our civility at table. If you're drinking a cup of tea, and I hope it is tea right now, I hope the little finger is crooked in deference to what you've just heard. Free call 0500 1053 89. What is the most crippling legacy of the Thatcher years? The erosion of table manners. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Tommy Boyd. It's time to poison the water hole.
Cutting edge.
Tommy Boyd.
Sucks less.
You know, I don't want to bring this up, but you've been treating a lot of people with a lot of disrespect.
Well, if it's all those ratbags who talk when they've got their mouth full and eat their fish and chips out of the paper, then I'm afraid, quite frankly, they've earned our disrespect. True? True. Angela's on the line from Guildford. You're on Talk Radio. Angela, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good
and
afternoon.
do you drink your beer out of bottles?
Not me. I'm sorry, not
Heavens, because I think that is one of the most disgusting things that has crept into our everyday life.
I. Yeah.
I think there is nothing more unpleasant than to see a girl or a boy drinking out of a tin with just pulling that little ring thing back and drinking. What are they doing? Why have they no manners? And it is so slovenly, it reflects in their conversation. I've seen people picking up a knife as though it's a dagger and stabbing at what's on their plate.
Yes.
And when you stop to look at these kind of people, they always eat with their mouths open. It is disgusting.
They chomp.
They chomp.
Oh.
They have no conversation. They grunt. Normally they grunt.
Yeah.
Bottle drinkers grunt.
And if they want the sauce, if they want the brown sauce, they'll just lean right across you.
That's right.
and
They
pick
won't
it up.
say, they won't say, I beg your pardon, excuse
No.
me, or please pass the
No.
salt,
No.
or pass this. The table manners are nothing but obnoxious now, and they make you feel sick.
I blame this lazy Susan woman.
Lazy Susan?
Yes, the Americans came up with her. She's this wooden carousel.
That turns round.
Yes, and
With
all
all the bits in it.
all the gunk that people like to pour over their food to make it vaguely edible. You know,
But
the
something else, you
riffraff.
see, if people ate properly, if they picked up their utensils and used them correctly, they'd also sit up properly and they'd digest their food, Tommy.
Yes, and you wouldn't have all these people with
And they
chippy
wouldn't
tongues.
dribble.
No.
And they'd use something tucked in just to catch the odd thing that might fall down.
When was the last time you went round to somebody's house to eat and they provided you with a napkin?
Well, I always do it.
I do too.
Yes, I always do it. I just could not
But
imagine not doing it.
I just want to upbraid you on one aspect of this, Angela. It's a little bit non-you of you to tuck it in.
Well, to tuck it in, I suppose it is, really. It
drop
depends what you're wearing, doesn't it, really?
Just drop it on your lap.
Well, yes, but it isn't always on your lap it goes.
That isn't the point.
Ah,
Good manners has
I
got
stand corrected, Tommy.
Thank you know as well as I do that good table manners has very little to do with the practicalities of eating and digestion.
Well, I don't know. It looks nicer. You have a better conversation if you're being slow, and you know what I mean. You're not chomping at your food and.
I say. You're not going to believe this.
Am I not?
No, but somebody has rung up from Leeds, where else?
Yes.
Okay, who wants to take you up on what you're saying about stabbing with your knife. David, are you there?
I'm there.
Yeah.
Yes.
They clutch it in the fist, David. They clutch it in their
with your
fist.
knife? You can eat how you want to eat, surely.
No, you can't.
No.
Why not?
It is pigs that do that. We are human beings, and we're a cut above them.
Who cares how people eat?
I do. Because I don't like to watch you with your food all slithering round your teeth and dribbling down your face. I think it's horrible. And your mother should have taught you, and you should teach your children how to eat properly. Not only for your own good, but for everybody else who's looking at you.
Who cares how you eat?
I do, for one, and so do thousands of others. Because manners maketh the man, young man. Manners maketh the man. Remember that. I'm older than you, And I can tell you that you ought not to just dismiss these little niceties of life so lightly.
There. That's Angela in Guildford, giving that little boy in Leeds a good telling off for using his knife incorrectly. Quite right, too. Table manners. We used to lead the world in table manners. Why, I imagine that it was this proud country which invented the very business of table manners. You only have to go abroad and see people tucking in with relish and gusto to their food. Not in Britain, no. We cut small triangles away, and with an upturned fork, lift it neatly to our lips, slip it in, and then chew discreetly, saying nothing until we have swallowed in silence the food. That's how to eat. Free call 0500 1053 89. Caroline calls from Dumfriesshire. Caroline, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Oh, it's the Americans. They're disgusting, Tommy.
Yes.
Yes, I lived there for 5 years, and when I went into restaurants to eat, I would be given a fork and no knife. It's ridiculous. And I remember once I was out for dinner in a really nice restaurant, and I didn't have a knife. No, wait, I did have a knife, and I was told that it was very bad manners to eat the way I was eating because it looked like I was being greedy, cutting up the food that way.
When I ate out in an American restaurant on one occasion, I was given a piece of cutlery which I wasn't quite sure what it amounted to. I was told it was a foon.
Oh, I didn't come across one of those.
It was a foon.
Oh, it was like a spoon and a fork.
Yes.
That's right.
It had some prongs in case you were eating something that needed pronging. But in the well of where you normally have a fork, there was an enlarged ladle-like space. So that you could actually just sort of, shovel your food in, really.
Well, that's because they're lazy, aren't they? They want everything quick.
Yes.
Yes, disgusting. Totally agree with what you say. I'm going to teach my little boy proper table manners.
Do you think there's any link between the Americans' absence of table manners and the fact that 80% of Americans are overweight?
Yes, I could believe that.
I believe that.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
I mean, half the time they don't even need a fork. You don't need a fork to eat a hamburger, do you? Or fry.
If you chew your food properly, I think you eat less. Good table manners, I think, is the easiest way to diet successfully.
Well, that's true. You're supposed to chew your food 32 times, is that right?
38 times.
Oh, 38. Oh, my goodness. No.
No wonder you're a little bit podgy around the hips.
Oh, thank you.
Not at all. Just trying to help.
Well, I'll remember that.
Free call 0500 1053 89. This is Talk Radio. 4:20.
Door-to-door delivery across the globe. DHL worldwide.
The curry and then spooning it in. You can't really use a knife and fork if you're eating curry, can you? Can you? Or does your great aunt still insist that you should? Power to her if she does. Power to her. David calls from Baldock.
Hello, Tommy.
Welcome to Talk Radio. Morning.
How you doing? I'll tell you one of the most embarrassing things is you go into a Chinese restaurant and they're just about to serve you and they put the chopsticks down for you.
Yes.
And everyone's standing around looking at you and you have to put your hand up and say, oh, excuse me, can I have a knife and fork?
And
there's a real bad stigma in the air that, oh, you can't eat Chinese with chopsticks.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, what I would like to know is how do they eat the rice with it? They just shovel it straight in.
Yes, they do.
Can you use chopsticks?
I can use chopsticks.
Can you catch
when in
flies
Rome... I beg your pardon?
Can you catch flies with them in the air?
Catch flies with... No, I can't catch flies with a fork, though, so...
Oh, but you can swat it easy with a fork.
You can't, really, because you'd probably only have Granny's eye out if you tried. You see. No, you're right.
know.
You're right. I mean, chopsticks, the use of chopsticks, if you use chopsticks properly, you've probably got your food in a small hand-sized bowl, and you brought it more or less up to your chin.
But what I'd like to do is I like to get everything on the fork, but you can't really do that with chopsticks. I mean, everything from rice...
Well...
Everything.
I think that you probably eat less, or you enjoy your food more if you use chopsticks, because each mouthful has to be that much smaller.
Yeah, but you never see a fat Chinese man, do you?
Exactly.
I know.
Exactly.
And that is why.
And that is why.
And I reckon Margaret Thatcher invented the chopstick myself. That's what I really think.
David, thank you for your call. Free call 0500 1053 89. Here's a funny thing eating. Did you know that in Hollywood, through until the mid-40s, early 50s, there were two things that nobody could ever be shown doing on the screen. One, this is true, they could never be shown in bed together. Not even fully clothed. Somebody had to have at least 1 foot on the floor, even if there was a bed scene, okay? And two, nobody could ever be shown eating. Okay? It was considered being seen eating was considered to be as disgusting as the implication that sexual behaviour might take place. All right? Free call 0500 10 53 89. But we've gone too far the other way, haven't we? Haven't we? The way we eat hamburgers all down our front? We're talking about table manners. What has happened to them? And was Margaret Thatcher to blame? John calls from South London. You're on Talk Radio. Hello, John.
Good afternoon, Tommy.
Sir.
Tommy, you were talking about curry.
Yeah.
I was born in India, was brought up in India, so obviously curry and rice was our staple diet. And the correct way to eat curry, and this always makes me laugh when I go to a restaurant and see people eating curry and rice with a knife and a fork, it's with a spoon and a fork. That's the correct way to eat.
Okay, what in which hand? Wait a minute.
The spoon in your right hand.
Spoon right hand, yep.
And the fork in your left. And then you organize the curry and the rice together on the spoon with the fork. So it makes a nice sort of scrummy mouthful. And that's the way to eat it. And I always think what a painful procedure these poor people are going through by trying to eat curry and rice with a knife and a fork.
Can I bring Munjeed into the conversation?
Yes, by all means.
Who calling from Hales Owen, probably knows a thing or three about eating curry. Munjeed?
Hello there. This fellow you have speaking is talking rubbish. The cutlery is only the Victorian invention. In India, when we eat the curry, we use a chapati. We use our hands. We don't use a spoon and a fork, and you put the fork this way and the spoon that way, the rubbish. You use your fingers, you take a piece of the chapati and you scoop up the curry with the chapati and put it in your mouth, and you use nothing but your fingers and your hands.
Manjeed, you're absolutely right.
Of course I'm right, and you're talking rubbish about
you are. Well, no, listen to me. You're absolutely right, because the food tastes so much more delicious when you eat it with your hands, which I'm going to do this evening. But if you don't want to get your hands all mussed up with the strong spices of curry spices or whatever and dirty, then you need eating implements.
Well, wash your hands afterwards.
Look! I've got to intervene with you two Indians on the line, right?
He's not an Indian. His name is John.
But he's born in India. He's more Indian than you. Shut up. The point is this: we invented good table manners in this country.
If he's an Indian, I'm an astronaut.
Shut up. We invented good table manners in this country, and things were going very nicely until you foreigners came over here teaching us to eat food with your hands. That's disgusting.
It's not. You wash your hands first.
But what about your fingernails? All the stuff underneath your fingernails.
You've got to wash properly.
Well, what about if you've been working on the car?
You English never wash properly anyway.
But what about if you've been working on the car?
Tommy,
what?
If you're not eating chapatis, I agree the only way to eat chapatis and curry is with your hands. But if you're having curry and rice, then you need implements to get the food to your mouth. Yeah. Certainly curry and chapatis should be eaten with your hands. You
lot have got a lot to learn from the Arabs.
Yes.
Now, if we're going to pick up any rice-eating habits, I'd rather it was from the Arabs than you Indians. Because they only use... Somebody's crackling. They only use their left hand to eat their rice with, don't they?
Well, it's because of their lavatorial habit.
Exactly my point. Thank you. You understand? You're with me? Isn't that right? If you're going to eat food with your hands, there's only one way of making sure that hand is scrupulously clean, and that is to use it for nothing but
eating. But if you wash thoroughly, your hands will always be clean.
Yes, but you don't always have chapatis with curry. Sometimes you just have curry and rice. And it's not practical in a public place to eat curry and rice with your hands.
Well, all the restaurants in India, they are public places. They always have a tap to wash your hands before and afterwards.
Well, why do they have eating implements by the sides of the plates then?
These are only recent inventions from the Victorian age.
Well, that's not recent. I mean, it's about 110 years, 120 years.
120 years is nothing in relative terms. This is a recent thing, sir. Before that, hands were used in this country and across the world.
John in South London and Munjid in Hales Owen, thank you very much indeed for your call. But it is the influence, isn't it, of foreign food and foreign culture, which we, being the absorbent nation that we are, the wonderful quilt of multicultural influences, are happy to take on board not only new cuisine. You can't get a curry in France, or in America, I shouldn't wonder. Right? But also the way in which the food is eaten. But what this has led to is an erosion in something which was once a crucial part of our national identity. Good table manners. Good table manners. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Cassandra calls from Rochford.
Hello?
You're on Talk Radio,
Yes.
Cassandra.
Yes, I think you're one of the worst offenders. I've often turned you off when I've heard you slurping your drink. Hello?
That's not table manners?
No, I think it's awful when I heard you. And all the talk presenters, apart from Scott Chisholm, all seem to eat while they're on the programme.
I can't answer for them.
No, but Dara Dickens and Wading Whale are always eating on the programme and mastigating and ruminating.
I can't answer for them.
I know, but you do it as well. I've heard you slurping.
You've never heard me eat on the radio.
Yes, but you can easily drink during the commercials. You don't have to drink...
Talking about eating. It's you that brought up the subject of drinking,
Well,
and that's only because you want an argument.
Not really. I'm just thinking all talk presenters...
Ringing
tend
up
to eat
for
a
an
lot.
argument.
Yes, but you're preaching to other people, but you slurp and you could easily drink during the commercials.
And that's got nothing to do with table manners.
It has?
It has not.
Well, we didn't want to hear you drinking when we're listening.
Well, how do you know I'm drinking then if you don't hear me?
Because I can hear you drinking. It's because Douglas Cameron is away that I'm listening to Talk Radio, but I'm not going to anymore. Goodbye.
Well, I'll tell you what. No wonder Douglas Cameron is away. I thought he was dead, actually, but I'm glad to hear he's not. Who's Douglas Cameron, you may ask? The greatest reader of the radio news in the history of world broadcasting. I'm glad to hear he's still doing it. But fancy being saddled with listeners like Cassandra, for God's sake. Honestly. Poor wee lad. I've worked with Douglas Cameron for 2 years. I'm going to tell you the story. Reading the news, hot news, cold news, in between news. And he only stumbled the once. And that is incredible because of all the African leaders that you had then, because Africa used to be in the news a lot. God, what a woman. Free call 0500 10 53 89, just for Cassandra then. Nick calls from Christchurch. Nick, we're celebrating good table manners. What has happened to them?
Yes, Tommy, have you noticed that out of all the burger restaurants there are, there's only one, and it's a British one, that give you cutlery and crockery. All the rest give you packaging, don't they?
They do. You get a cardboard box.
That's right. And there's only one, this British one, that gives you plates.
Yes.
I wonder why that is.
No wonder our children are just going off the rails.
That's right. So I think, full marks for this particular company, which, of course, I can't name.
No, but you have done in a way. Well done, because we all know who you're talking about. Good man.
Yeah.
Good man, Nick. You see, if you exercise good table manners, okay, you're learning the fundaments of so many other important skills. Consideration of others, for example.
That's right.
Discipline.
Yeah.
Self-control. Knowing when it's your turn to talk and when not. Listening skills. They're honed at the table, provided people are exercising good table manners.
That's right. And, of course, what you're saying on another conversation, get rid of the television and buy a dining room table.
Buy what?
Get rid of the television and buy a dining room table.
Exactly.
And listen to Talk Radio.
Right. Nick, thank you for your call. To Sarah now, who calls from Cheshire. Sarah, you're on Talk Radio.
Hi, Tommy.
Hello.
I had to ring up. I just agree so much with you.
Yeah.
I went out with a guy years and years ago, and we'd been going out about 3 months, and we finally went for a meal. And I just went off him instantly. He ate like a pig.
Pig?
Oh, literally, I could see everything in his mouth. I can still see him now.
Yeah.
And this was about 18 years ago.
It used to be, didn't it? The start of a great romance was always that first delicious 12-course meal that you would share together.
Yeah, and the thing was, I'd gone off with him during the starters, and we had to get through the main course.
What was the starter?
Prawn cocktail. Do you remember everybody used to go out and eat prawn cocktail?
In a sort of a wine glass thing?
Yes.
Yeah, but a few bits of lettuce.
Yeah, well, it was disgusting. And the other thing I can't stand when they put toothpicks on the table.
Oh,
and people
no!
sit there picking their teeth or sucking their teeth.
Oh, don't. Mind you, it is, especially if you had corn on the cob.
Yeah, but I think they should be put in the loos.
Yes.
And then, when you go to wash your hands, whatever, you can clean your teeth then.
Yes.
But not sit there picking your teeth at the table.
Somebody told me how you make the sauce for prawn cocktails, and it was ever so simple. You just buy a jar of mayonnaise, right?
And tomato sauce.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
I know, and they
because the prawns actually flavour the sauce.
Exactly. And what do they charge for a prawn cocktail? A few bits of lettuce, six tin prawns.
Yeah.
And some tomato sauce.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing I can't stand, you were saying about people that drink from beer bottles.
Yes.
I hate the fact that whenever you go into a pub now and you have a bottle of beer,
yes.
you have to ask for a glass.
Yes.
And they look at you like, you crawled out from under a rock or something.
I know, it's like that sign in some pubs that says if the music is too loud, you're too old.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you ask for a bottle of wine in a pub, they'd automatically give you glasses, wouldn't they?
Yes, exactly.
They wouldn't expect you to drink from that bottle.
What they can do, you see, they make two savings. One, they save on the washing up of the glass.
Yeah.
And two, they put a tiny quarter of lime into the top of the bottle, okay?
Yeah.
And charge you £2.50.
Oh, I know.
And we pay it.
Yeah, we've all done it.
Do we think it's cool to stand there swigging from the neck of a bottle? I suppose we do.
But when we were kids, we were told you must always pour it into a glass.
Does a man... Look, you're a woman of the world. and you know your way around men, don't you?
Well, probably.
Does a man look sexier drinking from the neck of his beer bottle or out of a glass?
Out of a glass.
Out of a glass.
Well, it's the same old thing. Does a man look sexier in underpants or without them? And you'll always look sexier in a pair of pants rather than naked.
And do you know the easiest way to make yourself laugh?
What?
Is to imagine your boss wearing nothing but socks.
Yeah. What about the Americans? They wear those funny things that hold their socks up.
Well, I've never actually seen them, only in cartoons.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, do you know what I can never get?
What?
What on earth women see in men's bodies? They're dreadful.
Bottoms.
Oh.
Firm bottoms.
I know. Fair enough. Yeah. I can see that. It doesn't do anything for me, but I can see that men's bottoms must be all right.
Yeah. I think it comes from when you're a mum and you like your baby's bottom,
You do, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Aren't they fantastic? Are you a mum?
Yeah.
How many?
Just one.
Just the one?
But I still love her bum.
Yeah.
And she's 5 now, and it's still lovely.
I know. They're incredible, aren't they, bottoms? No wonder Yoko Ono made that movie. Do you remember?
No.
It was 365 bottoms, all going from camera right to camera left across the screen. Mm-hmm. Just bottom after bottom after bottom. I saw at the Institute of Contemporary Arts. One of them was Michael Aspel's bottom, but they never said which one.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I think we're slightly digressing here.
It doesn't matter, does it? There's no such thing, is there, as a rotten bottom?
Oh, I don't know. I think I could do with a bottom lift.
What's your bottom like?
It's big.
Is it?
Yeah, I've got the pear shape, I'm afraid.
That's all right. Still a bottom.
I know.
Isn't it?
I know.
So. Where were we? Thank you for your call.
Thank you.
Free call 0500 1053 89 as we turn our attention to a pressing issue affecting transport today. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening. About motoring, and I don't think it's got a definite answer. But you may have firm views on it, in which case, free call 0500 1053 89. I think it's one of motoring's unsolvables, because there's strong evidence to support one answer and strong evidence to support the other. And yet there must be a right or a wrong, and it's this. It's just this. In a car, okay, where should the engine go? In the front or in the back? Now, what are the best cars in the world? It's Formula One cars, and their engines are always in the front. And most of the cars that we drive on the roads today have their engines in the front, and lorries have their engines in the front, and buses have and trains, the engines, always at the front. So there must be a good reason, several good reasons, from the point of view of performance and economy and safety and ease of maintenance, why the engine is in the front. And yet, we all know, don't we, that the most successful car that was ever built was built in Hitler's Germany, and it was the old Volkswagen Beetle. And the thing we remember most about that, even more than its Beetle shape, is the fact that, and somebody's dad always had one, and we always wanted to have a look to see if it was true, and sure enough, the engine is at the back. I wonder why they put it there. And I wonder whether it had anything to do with the fact that it did turn out to be the most successful production line family car of all time. Free call 0500 10 53 89. The engine's heavy, so if you have it over the front, it helps with traction for your steering. So you would think it was slightly safer to have the engine at the front. But then the engine is heavy, so if you have it at the back, it's over the wheels so it's driving the car forward. So you would think that would improve the overall performance and the economy of the car. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Something that somebody once said to me stuck in my mind, and I'll mention it. I hope you're not stuck with it for the rest of your life. And it is that if the engine is in the front of the car, you're safer as a driver and as a passenger because on impact, that engine will help protect you from the worst effects of the crash. And free call 0500 10 53 89. And then there's a whole business of access. Today's car engines seem to be so huge, such great, enormous things with so many bits all crammed in under the bonnet. It's very difficult, isn't it, to get in there with a screwdriver and a pair of pliers or a plug if there's anything you want to tamper with or need to fix. Free call 0500 10 53 89. And in the back of the car, you can make the boot as long as you want. Plenty of space for accessibility. Free call 0500 10 53 89. I think it's an unsolvable, but we can kick it around. In a car, where should the engine go? What's overall best? In the front or in the back? I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening. Jane calls from London. You're on Talk Radio. Jane.
Tommy, hello.
Front or back?
You didn't mention one of the best cars of all time, the Fiat 500.
Fantastic.
I've had 3 of them. Not anymore because they're not very safe, but they're so pretty.
Yes.
I reckon that perhaps they turn the engine upside down and put it at the back in a different shape, and then that leaves them to shape the car just as they like in the front. Lovely round, short bonnets.
Yes.
And an upright engine at the back, which you probably can't do because the windscreen will get in the way in the front.
Yes.
So I reckon it's a prettiness thing. You see, in the Beetle was the cutest looking car as well. That's why the Herbie was so successful.
Yes.
But I think the Fiat 500 is a similar sort of thing. I just love this. They're beautiful. But make everyone laugh when you drive around in them.
Cars more and more are becoming jelly mould shapes, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you would have thought that being the case, you would get more engines in the back. But how many modern production line cars now have the engine in the back?
Well, yes, I don't know if any. It definitely wasn't a safe car. But then I think the Beetle was. But the Fiat 500 was, I think, probably had the worst crash record of any modern car.
Well, it's a vulnerable car, isn't it? I always think that, you know Clive Sinclair and that little electric car of his?
Yeah.
I always think that died a death because you were so vulnerable in that thing with buses and lorries overtaking you. You know, you were so low down, you could practically see through underneath a lorry.
Well, this was the same thing. They rolled before they spun, apparently, which was unheard. Well, it should be unheard of. They shouldn't do that. But that was one of the few production cars that rolled before it wanted to spin.
I'm sure we're safe in saying this because they're not in production any longer, are they?
No, not then.
That's all right.
No, but well, sorry, that's my view of it. And that was I've had 3 of them.
Thank you. That cops me out anyway. So that's all right. My old dad had one of those, and he was a big lad from the waist up. My dad.
Yeah.
If his legs had been as long as the rest of his body, he'd have been 6'8". And what he used to do is he used to have the sunroof down on his feet, and he'd drive with his head out the top, looking like a tank driver.
Oh, they're fantastic. But I think the reason they weren't very safe is because they were so big inside. They were like a TARDIS.
Yes.
I could get 4 people in them very happily.
Oh, yes.
But there was no protection around you, really. It was just a skin of metal.
What do you drive now?
An estate car, children, dog, all that.
Wow, I know. Sweet wrappers on the floor.
Yeah, I know. Well, it happens. But also, the brakes failed once too often in the wrong place, and my husband said, no, enough. It's a comic car, but it won't do for your longer-term safety. So it went, sadly.
Lovely to talk to you, Jane. Thanks for your call. It's Street Beat Symphony with DHL Worldwide Express. Steve calls from Crawley. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Tommy. I'm just phoning to say I think the safest option really is a front-wheel drive car with the engine in the front. That way you have the traction over the front and you've got the steering. It's a much safer option, and as you see, most production cars are made that way today.
Yeah, so the whole of the car is being pulled along by the engine.
Yeah.
As opposed to pushed from behind.
That's right. I'm in the motor trade myself.
Oh, yeah.
And I did my apprenticeship on Porsche. And obviously the 911 has the engine actually in the back. Behind, actually, the rear axle.
Is it?
One of the most fantastic cars to drive, but very, very dangerous.
Yeah, you see, dragsters. I don't know if you get drag racing in this country still.
Yeah, I mean, you do. It's a minority.
I can never say drag racing without imagining Danny LaRue up against... Doesn't matter. You can't, can you? But they always have those great big motors in the back, don't they?
They do, but...
So you assume that for performance... it's better to have the engine in the back?
Well, the main reason, really, I'm not too sure about dragsters. I haven't really been involved in that side of it. But if you look at, you mentioned Formula One cars, and indeed many sports cars, they actually have what's called a mid-engine, where the engine is actually mounted behind the front two seats, and that actually is for handling. Increases handling much better. When you enter a bend, it's very neutral, not too much oversteer where the car goes to go straight on, and not too much understeer where the car goes straight on, or oversteer where the back end comes around.
When you say you're in the trade, Steve, are you a car salesman or are you on the maintenance side?
No, I'm a vehicle tech.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your call. Robin calls from Newcastle. Robin, you're on Talk Radio. Hello.
Hi, Tom, you okay?
Yeah, you?
Fine, thanks. Talking about the cars and their engines, there is now a Mercedes out with their engine underneath.
Really?
So it gives a sort of a whole new dimension. I think that'll probably be the safest thing. I mean, if you've got if you're in a crash, say, and the engine's up front and the engine's likely to come back to you, I mean, and if you're in a crash and the engine's behind, then, I mean, the likelihood, it's not so bad, but the likelihood of it is that the engine's going to come forward. So if you've got the engine and everything else underneath you, then, well, it's going to go nowhere. It might go backwards and forwards, but at least it won't hit you. So.
It's funny, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether you're on a train, or on a bus, or you're in your own car. From time to time, you mentally rehearse what might happen if there was an impact.
Yeah.
And you find yourself leaning forward if you're in your car, don't you? And seeing if your head touches the steering wheel. You do, don't you? Have you done it?
Yeah, I mean...
Of course you have.
Yeah, I mean, when you were asking what the best place for the engine is, I mean, it depends if you're sort of one of these petrolhead enthusiasts. You know, the guy before was going on about the performance and everything like that. I mean, that's fine if you want to have a mid-engine or a rear engine, you're going to have a great car performance. But if you're going to just want a car to get you from A to B, I mean, stick it on the front, it doesn't really matter. But as opposed, when you're talking about safety, which everybody's concerned about no matter what you are, I think this Mercedes idea would be the best thing, because it takes the engine and all the mechanicals totally out of the equation, and all you have to worry about is where you're going to sit.
Thanks, Robin, for your call. This is Street Beat Symphony with DHL, Worldwide Express. Dave's on the line from North Yorkshire. Hello, Dave.
Right, Tommy.
Dave.
It's in the front of the car, yeah, because it's safer, because if the car plays up, yeah, if there's anything wrong with the engine, you can hear it better because you're closer to it.
Yeah.
And also, if there's like the radiator steams up, you can see the steam coming out of the engine.
Yep.
So what do you think of that? Do you think that's the right idea?
Yes. Doesn't your heart sink, though, when you see that steam coming out the front? It happened to me. I was on my way to a football match about a year ago.
Yeah.
And there it was.
What was it?
What was it? I'll tell you what, it cracked the engine because like a fool, I carried on. I kept, I did, the best tip anybody ever gave me, if your car's overheating, is to turn your heater on.
Why's that?
Well, it's something to do with the fact that in order to transfer heat to the passenger part of the car, it has to draw heat away from the engine area.
Alright, so then you get the heat instead of the engine.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Follow you there, Tommy.
So I drove home with the heating on full and cracked the engine block. Cost me $1,000.
Alright. Oh, well, I'll do that next time. I'll tell my mates when next time it happens.
I don't think you were listening to the full story, Neil. You've got a spare $1,000, have you? Give it to me. Thanks for your call. Neil calls from North London. Neil, a vexed question. Where's the best place for the engine, front or the back?
Well, I was thinking about this, Tommy. The sexiest cars, when you think about it, your Lamborghinis, your Ferraris, it's mostly at the back, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Elspeth gets the last word on this one. In Worcestershire, you're on Talk Radio. Hello, Elspeth.
The Hillman Imp.
What?
You had to put a couple of bags of potatoes in it, in the front.
Yes.
Under the bonnet.
Yes.
Otherwise, the wind on the motorway just caught you.
Well, and lifted the front...
You've got to weight it down.
You're joking. Lifted the front of the... You're kidding.
No, really.
Is that true?
Or a heavy suitcase with some bricks in.
It's a lovely story, and I'm sure it's true. You wouldn't tell a fib, would you?
DHL Worldwide Express, the world's #1 international express carrier.
Peter Dealey is next. Talk to you at 3 tomorrow.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.